for me to be on this seminar. My name is Cecilia Jenga. I'm the head of the UN Environment Office here in South Africa, and also responsible for UN Environment's work in the SADC, Southern Africa region. This morning, we will be sharing with you, the experience we are having as a partnership based on collaboration amongst a number of institutions, both public and private, both within government and non-governmental organizations. And I'll be speaking to the topic of building effective partnership to address the COVID-19 waste management challenges. My presentation will be, first I'll give you a background to the topic. We all know that COVID-19 has placed huge pressures on us, on our socioeconomic establishment, but also on our environment, on our natural environment. And that's the key challenge of COVID-19, as much as it is a health emergency, has emerged also as a developmental emergency that needs to be tackled from an integrated approach. I will then talk about the role of partnerships in emergency response and the importance and the relevance of partnerships in dealing with emergencies such as COVID-19. I will introduce you, and I'm really glad to see a number of the stakeholders that are part of this national multi-stakeholder COVID-19 waste management platform easier, including the areas of work that this multi-stakeholder partnership and platform is engaged in. I will then go to give you some insights on some of the impacts and the positive achievements that the platform has had to date. And then I will talk briefly about the importance of this platform in contributing to building back better post the COVID-19 crisis. So as I mentioned before, it is indeed the key challenge that the entire globe, the entire world is facing. And specifically, particularly for us that work in the environment sector and the waste sector, the importance of us positioning these issues in terms of how COVID-19 is related to nature and is related to a response that needs to be comprehensive in scale. And we do know that even though waste management during normal times has been a key challenge, it has definitely been magnified during this time of COVID-19. And during emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic, the challenge of waste management has become so central, and the need for us that work in this sector to continuously remind and place the need for us to focus on this area to those that is responsible for humanitarian and health response. So the need for effective waste management is urgent. And it's an essential public service, and therefore important for us to minimize and work towards the minimization of the possible secondary impacts it can have upon human health and the environment. In South Africa, what we have observed in response to COVID-19, the hospitals, the healthcare facilities, and our individual homes are also producing more waste than usual. Also because, we are also staying at home, and therefore that adds on to our household waste generation and the need for increased waste disposal. And we are seeing, including masks, gloves, including gowns and other protective equipment that could be infected with the virus is finding its way on our day-to-day waste that we are used to managing. There's also a large increase in the amount of single-use plastic that is being produced, because, as you know, most of the products, the PPEs we are using, are also based and produced using plastic. Then what we are seeing is that even though we know that this has been a challenge, but more so now with the increased healthcare waste, there is still lack of reliable, comprehensive, and to-date data waste on data across all scales. This is really a major constraint to effective waste management, including planning, and responding and providing the necessary infrastructure that would be required. In South Africa, we only have 14 licensed facilities that accept health-related waste, and all of them use the non-burn technology, and the most common we have seen is incineration and autoclave. And then while these challenges of dealing with this waste remain in specific localities, and especially in remote areas, and I would say informal settlements, South Africa at present still has enough treatment and spare capacity at an aggregate level to deal with healthcare waste. However, we do know that at the household level and where the municipality is responsible for dealing with waste, the capacity still remains very much constrained, and more so in the informal settlements, which already were not receiving adequate support and in this basic service that is so much needed today. What we are seeing is that prior to COVID-19, the healthcare facilities and individuals are producing more waste than usual. And as I mentioned, we need to start seeking to look at what are the alternative ways of disposal and managing this waste when we are faced with a constrained infrastructure and support capacity to deal with this waste. So let me give you a brief background on our emergency appeal for COVID-19. As is required and as what happens in many countries across the globe, when the globe is faced by this kind of global epidemic and global emergency, as a UN, we come together as UN agencies, as a country team, and we work and develop what we call a joint emergency appeal that would deal with a particular emergency, and in this case, the COVID-19 pandemic. Our emergency appeal as a UN in South Africa identified 3 key areas, and we also identified where this pocket of affected people was, and therefore we zoomed into that and very much also informed by our work around the Sustainable Development Goals, the need for us to focus on the marginalized, the need groups, particularly who we call, who we refer to as mainly children, the elderly, women living with disabilities and people living with disabilities, people living with HIV, refugees and migrants who are most affected across the country, and also geographically to identify locations. And we identified Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, that were most affected. And we identified response activities and strategies that would be carried out in an emergency response for the next 6 months. That was April to October 2020. The 3 strategic areas that we're dealing with is supporting strengthening of the public health response to the spread of COVID-19. And we focused on a population of about 33.3 million. Our second area of response was around providing humanitarian assistance to vulnerable communities and to mitigate against the negative socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19. And there we targeted about 9.9 million. And our third strategic area of support is around supporting the government of South Africa's response to the COVID-19 through immediate interventions that support the improvement of governance, human rights, and gender equality, including coordination and supporting social cohesion and service provision. So individual and collectively, UN agencies have developed programs and activities around this. And the program we are speaking to today around the waste management falls within this programmatic approach, and in collaboration with UNIDO, with UNICEF, with UNDP, we are undertaking projects and programs to support an immediate response, but also a long-term strategy in post-crisis to ensure that, that the country is able to build back better in its ambition to work on this. So what is the role of partnership and why this multi-stakeholder forum? Coming from the United Nations Environment Programme, I'm sure some of you have interacted with what we call UNEA, the United Nations Environment Assembly. And we place partnerships and a partnership approach and a collaborative approach across sectors, across private and public, government and community has been very critical in ensuring the sustainability of the actions we take to address key environmental challenges across the globe. And therefore, this partnership is informed by the same philosophy. And in our collaboration at the country level, we think that a partnership such as this will be important as it supports a program of addressing the challenge within its entire value chain. And the entire process of a value chain in terms of waste management matters. You know, from how we produce our waste, how we transport it, how we dispose it, and how we manage it. And therefore, each stage of management or of an environmental management process is very much related, including its interaction to society as well as to the economy. We believe that it's important that all stakeholders remain engaged in the system and also work towards promoting a life cycle thinking that identifies entry points and strategic intervention points, and also timing is incredibly important. But also the whole issue of decoupling. How do we disconnect the natural resource use and the environmental impact from the economic activities of our day-to-day life, including our human well-being as being critical and being very essential. And therefore, even as we use the gloves, as we use the masks to protect ourselves, we do know that indeed, in order for us to sustain that process for the environment, that it's important for us to decouple and be able to develop systems, a systems thinking and a life cycle thinking approach that ensures that our actions remain sustainable always. So we have worked together to establish this national multi-stakeholder COVID-19 waste management platform. And indeed, its objective is to support a more effective, more coordinated approach regarding the safe and environmentally sound waste management in our immediate response to the pandemic, but more importantly, laying a long-term foundation in building back better for achieving the goals of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. And as I mentioned, the stakeholders that are involved in this are UN agencies, UNEP, ILO, UNICEF, UNIDO, to mention a few, and UNDP. At the government level, both national, provincial, and local level, are civil society, representatives from academia, private sector, and here I'd also like to add, the networks such as Saupo, Viego, who are the networks of the people and those that we really need to take care of that are engaged in the waste management processes. So that's a listing of some of the partners that are involved in this platform and collaboration. And as you can see, these are all representative that are key and play a key role in the waste management value chain. So let me tell a little bit on the areas of work that we are involved in. As I said, we have 4 areas of work. First is around the whole issue of informal waste sector and waste reclaimers. We do feel that this is a segment that needs our attention, particularly at this time. And hopefully that through these processes, we can also work towards a much more integrated approach and achieve outcomes that will be beneficial in ensuring that they remain central in the waste management value chain. A second category and area of work is around strengthening municipalities, and I'll dwell a little bit deeper on that as we move along. Our third area is awareness raising, education, and communication. We do feel that a lot that we are doing and the way we are managing waste, particularly COVID-19 related waste, has to do a lot with our awareness, our education, and how we can learn better in terms of how we manage our personal waste and our community waste as individuals and collectively as a community. And the third area is around innovation and support for the small and medium enterprises who are greatly impacted during this period. And the considerations that we put in place is the need for us to accelerate recovery from COVID-19 as much as we can to ensure that the socioeconomic and well-being and livelihoods of our communities and the people we work with, including particularly the waste reclaimers, are sustained. Secondly, and to accelerate the 2030 agenda implementation, we all sit in a corner feeling a little bit threatened as to what the next 10 years hold for us, when at the start of the decade, which we called the decade for action, is threatened by this crisis and pandemic. So how can we really achieve the 2030 agenda when so many people will have lost job, when our environment might end up being more polluted than it was before if the systems and infrastructure have been really charged to the limit. Secondly, the Paris Climate Agreement. We do know that the climate change, both adaptation and mitigation actions, will be very crucial, and we have now seen it startlingly clear. We cannot go back to what we were before, that we do need to have a new future that integrates and takes into account the need for us to act and take action on climate. The Libreville Declaration on Health and Environment for Africa, which was a declaration that was part of the Africa Ministerial Conference and a commitment by African ministers, particularly to address this whole area around waste and deal with the environment and health as a much more integrated approach. And of course, the Stockholm and the Basel Conventions, which are really much look into issues of hazardous waste. And of course, the UNEA resolutions that look not only on plastics, but on marine litter, marine waste, etc., that are informing our processes. So let's look a little bit deeper into the first area of work, which is around informal waste sector and waste reclaimers. And why is this sector important to us? For us, is really crucial in the leaving no one behind principle, as we know that the informal waste sector constitutes a large part of the waste economy. We do know that around 60,000 to 90,000 people in South Africa, and you will see in some literature even a reflection of about 200, them noting 200,000 people and their income by salvaging and selling reusable and recyclable materials extracted from the waste stream. And from this figure, we know that the public and private sector are actually only contributing 29,833 people employed in that sector. So definitely the informal waste sector carries the bulk of the workers in this sector. Secondly, due to the nature of their work, they are, of course, the frontliners and basically are facing an increased risk due to the exposure of COVID-19 related waste, and therefore the need for us to focus on them. But thirdly, waste reclaimers collect about 80 to 90% of the paper and packaging that South Africa recycles. And we have noted that they are saving municipal authorities around 750 million rand per year out of their recycling activities that are undertaken in this sector of paper and packaging. We've done a very quick count. As we said, we have only been able, through collaboratively, to only address a fraction, I would say, of the needs of these reclaimers in terms of PPE. We do have provision of PPE that will come from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, equaling about 20,000 PPE equipment. UNEP, together with our partners, and I just really like to also mention here, WESA has played a critical role in mobilizing additional support of about 7,000 masks. UNIDO, working with a team of waste reclaimers, will also be supporting a comprehensive package of PPEs to some selected reclaimers. And Nedbank has also come through with support of about 5,000. Oxfam is also part of the picture in Ekurhuleni, providing support to PPEs. But as you can see, we're only filling a very small fraction. I would say, just nearly just a quarter of the needs are required for this sector. Again, as we can say, if we did not come collectively through partnerships and through collaboration, perhaps individually cannot be able to do much better. So it's really crucial for us to integrate the waste reclaimers. And the partnerships have identified, including consultations that we've had with Waste Reclaimers Association, that they be integrated in the municipal solid waste management system in order to ensure their resilience and that they are able to perform now and even post the crisis. And I'm not going to read all what is written on this slide, including, as I mentioned, the risk of their exposure, the need for us to increase their capacity for safe separation of recyclables, because that's where their income is derived from, but how can we support them to do the separation much more safely? And in our long-term ambition, including the municipal ambition as if part of their guidelines, minimize the waste that reaches our landfills, and therefore the need for us to have waste reclaimers in the value chain, and also remunerate them justly, so that they're able to support this. And also the whole issue of registration reclaimers, registering them so that we are able to trace contacts in case, and also be able to provision food parcels and other support would be required for them. So this is really the need for us to integrate the waste reclaimers. Our second area of work is around the municipalities. And we do know that South Africa has around 257 municipalities, all with varied capacity in terms of how they manage this sector. And therefore, we have also identified that through this process, we can engage more and find ways of enhancing how better we can provide capacity building, as well as support municipalities in the safe and environmental sound management of our medical and healthcare waste. Basically, again, to ensure the safety of their waste workers, both in the formal and informal waste economy, but also that citizens have access to proper waste management services during this critical time of need. We are also around the area of municipality, also furthering our knowledge on the challenges and the systemic weaknesses that are part and parcel of the waste management systems, and working towards supporting the development of programs and looking into the possibilities of developing investment models that can support the core infrastructure and the technological needs of the various municipalities, identifying the hotspots and mobilizing action around those hotspot areas and municipalities, but also learning lessons and enabling an exchange of experiences, replication, and upscaling across the municipalities around the country. I'd just like to share some information of one of the initiatives that we are actually kickstarting, which is a pilot project in the Newcastle local municipality. And we have just completed a rapid assessment that will inform evidence-based decision-making to put in place appropriate interventions of strengthening the waste management system in the Newcastle municipalities. Also looking at how we can use this case study to strengthen the existing guidelines to meet the COVID-19 challenges, but also working towards strengthening partnerships in Newcastle between both the formal and the informal sector in the waste management value chain, looking into low-cost technologies and what innovations exist out there that could be incorporated, because Newcastle will be moving and establishing a landfill, but how can we reduce the amount of waste that eventually gets into the landfill by innovations and through low-cost technologies, but also providing a systematic way of periodic training, monitoring, evaluation, and of course strengthening data collection for the continuous improvement of healthcare waste management in this municipality. Our third area of work is around education and communication. And basically here, apart from doing lots of public awareness, and informing the general public on how to manage COVID-19 related waste is also educating frontline decision makers and also on how to deal with COVID-19 health-related waste at this crucial, important time. Also establishing amongst ourselves, even as partners and stakeholders, a common understanding on waste management during this pandemic. Identifying the tools and mechanisms that are available to us to support, communicate, and promote implementation of waste management and emergency response, and also identifying strategies to implement communication and education elements. Again, here I would like to say that, in collaboration with our European partners, we've also been able to benefit from some of the tools and programs that they are supporting in this field of work. We have seen that through our collaboration, and I'd really like also to thank SST for the support they're providing through this webinar series, but also being a very critical partner that's dealing and leading our work around awareness raising. We've been able to reach over 6 million people in South Africa via print and online media to raise awareness about COVID-19. We've developed some key messages which have been through consultative process to find a common understanding on how we dispose, manage, and inform the general public and the key frontline workers on COVID-19. This, of course, is one of the webinars that's been organized under this platform, and we are planning a series of other activities, including education and awareness programs, some animated messages and clips that will be targeted and documented and disseminated via already existing channels that have been established by the waste reclaimers, by the government, the waste management directorate, etc., and also undertaking continuous surveys for us to have a continued learning and understanding of how things are evolving out there. Under the fourth area on youth, on SMMEs, we do realize and recognize the importance of youth and women-led SMMEs being extremely central to our response strategies, and the need for us to see how we strengthen their capacity and their response, not only in the products that they are producing to increase capacity for the development of PPEs. We have seen globally that there has been a real gap in terms of the production capacities for PPEs, but also to see how we can conceptualize the SMMEs as innovative entities in the whole value chain of building and ensure that they participate in building circularity and resource efficiency using innovative business models and sustainable materials, but also help identify opportunities for them which are linked to provision of infrastructure, goods and services in order for us to find an alternative way of using resource sustainability in the waste management value chain. What we have noted is that there are huge challenges, and as you all know, SMMEs have been hard hit. Most of them are front workers. They rely on direct contact with customers, and therefore they've been hugely impacted as we have all moved to staying at home. And in order for us, we do need to play a significant role to find a way to revitalize markets and value chains. And where we find we can support is in the area of production of green and sustainable products, while also supporting them to create not only green jobs, but also incomes for themselves, because a lot of SMMEs are family-owned, individually owned, and therefore when they fall out of the production process, that has huge impact on them. And then how do they access finances? How can they get better skills, the new skills for developing and producing PPEs, for instance, and also how do we have access to available data that would assist us to integrate them further today during the emergency, but also during the building back the process. And therefore, we do place the role of SMMEs. I mean, many African economies, SMMEs produce at least 60 to 70, and in some cases, 18% of the economy of most of our both urban and rural economies, and therefore the need for us to have a specific focus on this sector. Our area of work, therefore, is to empower emerging entrepreneurs with essential resources, capacity, and provide a platform for them where they can be able to enhance their capacity and get back to business. Our approach is holistic, and entrepreneurs I will share with you an example of an entrepreneur who has developed their capacity to deliver products and services immediately. And therefore, a business model that integrates circularity, sees waste as a resource, is actually designing for the future. And therefore, it's important for us to collaborate throughout the supply chain to create a joint value, but also improved livelihoods and a healthier environment for all of us. So I'd like to share with you an example of one of the SMMEs, and really this credit goes to Indalo Inclusive, that has, that's coordinating this team, that has also throughout, I think, its formation, really focused on sustainable SMMEs that work with the principle of sustainability at the heart of the work they do with the SMME population out there. So Repurpose is an SMME that is designed to deal with waste from the source, and it also aims to achieve a triple bottom line effect while focusing on the three critical aspects being social, economic, and environmental. Repurpose, we know it's a BEE level 1 social enterprise, and it was founded actually very recently in 2019 by an entrepreneur and internationally certified business coach, Beverly Nsudu. And they work around their business model is designed around three key principles: prioritize, authorize, and monetize. And Repurpose is not a typical waste management company. They are geared towards repurposing waste, and they deal with waste from the source and they convert it into a resource. In terms of repurposing, they propose urgent needs for funding to assist approximately 300 waste pickers. They have identified their target group, and they take them through a process of recycling. They're based in the KwaZulu-Natal region, and they work with these waste pickers for a period of about 6 months. So they identify this team, work with them for a period of 6 months, and in that process, gain value out of that. And working with about 300 waste pickers, they invest a total of about 1.4 million rands to support these waste pickers. So in terms of the monetizing, so it's repurposing, working with them and developing the necessary capacity of waste pickers and ensuring that at the end of the day, that process is monetized by ensuring that the waste pickers earn an income and allowing them an opportunity to operate and lead the businesses they have developed, and the income and being regenerated and working through developing more work and more economy and basic purposes for growing their businesses. So that is a model that we've really found to be innovative. That does not only deal on waste, but also works with the people, the reclaimers, but also in results find a way of sustainably monetizing them and providing a sustainable income to allow them to get back into the business and continue to support both the economy and the environment. So let me go briefly to what are the impacts, some of the impacts of the platform that has had. We've been able to work towards standardizing the requirements of PPE for the waste reclaimers. And I'm sure the group one that's been dealing with that, I hope is on the call and will be able to respond to some of the procedures and processes we've gone through in terms of standardizing these requirements, harmonizing national with international guidelines, both the WHO guidelines as well as other, international norms and standards that exist. Coordination between national departments. We've been able to facilitate conversations. Of course, they were already ongoing, but specifically on the needs of our waste reclaimers, including how to dispose, etc., of waste at household level. Coordination between the Department of Environment and the Department of Health. And we've also benefited from leverage. Resource efficiency, I was able to demonstrate through the platform how we've been able to reach out to a critical mass of waste reclaimers. Not all, but we have been able to do something about that. We have increased our outreach. As I figured out, we have been able to reach about 6 million people across the country through both media, all types of media, but also we've also benefited from North-South collaboration. And in our platform, we've had opportunities of exchange between our European partners and also our South African partners, thus enhancing collaboration and learning from each other. We've also been able, in the webinar hosted by UNEP, to have our initiatives also shared with the rest of the African continent out there. So again, through this platform, we've been able to have an outreach to other African countries. So in conclusion, how do we build back better? Because that's the problem. We will deal with the emergency now. It's a 6-month emergency response, but I think it's how we learn from these processes and inbuild into our waste management systems systemically a much more integrated approach to ensure that we foolproof our responses and how we deal with waste management in a much more sustainable manner. In the Build Back Better, therefore, our strengthening of local government capacity is very crucial in terms of the direct investments we will make to the core infrastructure and influencing the way the choice of technology required to treat mixed and contaminated household and medical waste that is being generated within our municipalities, ensuring that all citizens have access to proper waste management services will be crucial. So those are 2 critical elements in the Building Back Better that we hope that within the next period of time that we will be able to enhance and strengthen. Secondly, it's around the waste reclaimers. This is really very close to my heart and dear to me. How do we make them central frontline workers and recognized in the municipal solid waste management system? And I think this is really our great opportunity to do that. Secondly, and how do we enable their conditions for occupational health and safety? Because this is critical, not just to themselves, but to their families and to the communities where they live, and in order for us to ensure their better livelihoods and well-being to be able to continue doing the work they do. The third area is around SMMEs and innovation. We have seen that there are huge business opportunities. How can we capture these opportunities that are emerging, support SMMEs to integrate these business models that allow them to respond to where the market demands are, including how can we support the growth of innovation for improved livelihoods. And the fourth area is, of course, awareness raising. Yes, we have done 6 million. We can do much more. How can we collectively raise awareness and change public attitudes towards waste generation, waste management, and uncontrolled dumping, including open burning of waste, along with the associated health environmental impacts they have. And finally, it offers us an opportunity to jumpstart and move forward with our work around the Sustainable Development Goals, because as we address waste management, as we address emergency needs for dealing with COVID-19 related waste, we are really dealing with all the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it is in no poverty by ensuring and enhancing the value chains and integrating our waste reclaimers to be central to the processes of waste management, whether we are talking about life below water, it talks about the marine litter, The amount of waste that's now being reflected, and we are seeing it in our oceans. We are not leaving the house, but we continue to see images of masks, of gloves, floating on our seas, on our riverbeds, etc. We do have a responsibility. We have seen the same kind of waste on our land. We have seen the opportunities for innovation, SDG number 9, and for improving our municipal waste infrastructure at this time. So we do have an opportunity collectively through partnerships, goal number 17, both national, international, south to south, south to north partnerships, offering us an opportunity to do better and to build back better post the COVID-19 crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. That was great to hear about all the things that the campaign is aiming for and all the things that that will be happening. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box. In the meantime, Cecilia, I have a question for those who aren't aware of the campaign, who weren't aware before they saw your presentation. Do you have any advice or suggestions about how they could get involved with the various working groups and how they could contribute?
Okay. Yes, as I mentioned, the platform is quite open. And having said that, also, I'm very careful not to say that it's quite open. What we encourage is those organizations that already have an organized platform, like the Southern Africa Waste Speakers Association, that are already part of networks, to come jointly as a network or as a grouping to join the platform. Because in that way, then we are reaching a bigger number. However, the information that comes out of our conversations, deliberations, the products are publicly available, and we could be able to share that.
Thank you, Cecilia. It's wonderful to hear about all the work that's happening, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of SST when I say that we are very, very excited to be part of the Flash Appeal and the campaign to try and combat the impacts of waste awareness during this time. Please, everyone, feel free to type in your questions. It looks like, Tony, it looks like you started a question addressing Cecilia. In the meantime, Cecilia, I wondered if you could expand a bit on the investment models that you spoke about for municipalities in terms of supporting waste pickers and their role in the waste value chain.
Thanks, yeah. And I'm also hoping some of my colleagues from working group on municipalities are present so that they can also add value to my response. Yes, what we have seen, and this is not unique to South Africa, is waste reclaimers continue to operate in a very informal basis. And we have seen a continued recognition of them by the municipal authorities. However, we do know that they are still not very centrally seen as service providers formally by most municipal authorities. And therefore, I think what we are arguing and what the case we are trying to make through our work is that they do matter. As you saw from the figures I provided, there are about 60 to 90,000 of them. Is basically what I can call the official, very carefully, of those that are accountable. In some instances, we do know that they are saying they're over 200,000 in some cases. However, only about the municipalities collectively are hiring about 23 to 30,000 municipal waste pickers. So you can see the number is skewed towards the informal waste pickers. So how can municipalities have a plan that integrates them and allows them to be recognized and remunerated within the municipal budget? I think that's the kind of discussion that would be necessary, and then finding a mechanism where they are recognized, perhaps registered, but also their contribution is accounted for and remunerated, justly for them to be part and parcel of the value chain. But I'd like, if there are any colleagues from the municipal working group that would like to also respond to that, also do that.
Tony has said a huge thanks for the wonderful webinar, and sadly the applause could not be heard. Then there's a question that says, may you please provide some examples of low-cost or low-tech waste management technologies that are available for communities, or some examples of which initiatives are working well?
Yeah, in terms of the low-cost, low-tech technologies, first, I would just like to mention, as UNEP, we do have a center called IETC, based in Japan, that really specializes on technological innovations around the waste management value chain. And we can share the information to a link to the resources that they have available. And this is really technologies that have been peer reviewed and have been checked and are now distributed globally, the information globally for those that may be seeking low technologies. And so through the work that Indalo Inclusive is doing at the local level, they are also in the process of identifying some low-cost, low-tech innovations, whether it's in terms of water, of water-saving devices that have been produced by innovators out there, whether it's soap dispensers out there, whether it is gloves, whether it is masks. There are so numerous across this country and very interesting examples that are available. So again, that information will be available and we'll be able to share that with you post this seminar. But indeed, they are available. The critical challenge is integrating them into the procurement and supply chain of the municipal councils. You know, but we do know when there are emergencies, systems of procurement are also loosened, and therefore offering suppliers in the SMME opportunity to enter those value chains. But the technologies are available. The problem is scaling them up and allowing for a market to evolve to allow them the distribution of this product.
Thank you, Cecilia. There's a comment from Margaret that says, there's been a huge change in recyclables and monetary value. Please let us know which are the best recyclables, and they're based in Durban and KZN.
Yes, it's actually the whole global market has collapsed for recyclables. It's doing very poorly, and this is really impacting very much on the waste recyclers. I think, you know, paper is still quite the top #1 waste recyclable that still has a lot of value. But again, we do know that one of the challenges, particularly when dealing with the informal waste recyclers, is also training them on how to better separate the waste. And the importance of also for us that are in households, being able to provide our recyclables as clean, etc., and therefore providing them more greater value when they get into the marketplace, rather than mixing all our recyclables, not cleaning them before providing them to the recyclers or putting them out for recycling, etc., etc. But what I can say is at the moment, the market for recyclable is really sad. It's not doing well. It's really poor. So again, you know, we can provide that information, and we do have a specific group, team #1, that's dealing with that can provide more details with regards to the South Africa market. But as I said, the waste and packaging sector is still one of the best in terms of value and price.
There's a question that says, all the huge amounts of PPE masks used by public are disposed of in landfill. What are the plans to treat these PPE plastic wastes?
Okay, again, a technical question for a non-technical person. Yeah, what options exist out there for dealing with this? And I see I'm the only one that's allowed to speak on this webinar, and I'd have loved to have my colleagues that are better off out there. But I know that this question actually came from the press the other day. And what we are advising, our advisory in terms of our public awareness, is we are requesting this waste to be kept separately and to be collected and managed by the competent authority to dispose it. And I cannot speak basically for the municipal authorities, but I do know that there are guidelines on how to dispose healthcare waste. Incineration, of course, has been the most common. In some other municipalities, we find they do the burning, etc. But I do know that there are now some guidelines on how do you manage that waste. But from the household level, we are encouraging that waste be separated, stored separately, and disposed separately and not mixed with the other waste. So basically, that's what I can say for now, is that along the value chain, let's leave it to the most competent authority to manage it. But let's do our part by ensuring that we keep it in a separated format.
Thank you, Cecilia. I see there have been a few comments from the other stakeholders in the program. There was a thank you for the informative webinar, and then Belinda said PPE should be disposed with hazardous waste, not with general waste. Joe commented that collaboration is key. A network that could support full value chain is the newly formed Network South Africa Initiative to End Plastic Waste in the Environment, with focus on infrastructure, education, awareness, and innovation. Biodegradables, etc., and they're welcome to contact Plastics SA, and that's Joe Stain. Also, just a comment on the masks and PPE. I know there are a few companies that are using PET bottles and the outer layers of their mask. I think one of them has been shared via SST social media, so you can double check about that. Then there's a question: how efficient is the waste diversion system in South Africa, if any? Is there an opportunity to strengthen it to minimize burying of recyclable material in landfills and minimize contamination?
That's a good question from my colleague Isabel. Is there an opportunity to strengthen? As I said on my closing last slides, indeed, that's one of the things in the Building Back Better that we hope to achieve through this platform, is finding a way to strengthen the entire value chain system of waste management, and also seeking to find value and avenues for value. One of the projects we've been supporting in South Africa is the Industrial Symbiosis project by the National Cleaner Production Center. And in this project, what they've been doing is identifying what is waste in one industry and matching it to another industry that uses it as a resource, and therefore maximizing on resource efficiency and reducing waste in those processes. So as we move forward, we will be trying, and as I said, applying the life cycle and circularity as the key principles that we inform our waste management value chains as being very crucial in terms of ensuring and building an opportunity to minimize the whole issue of burying of recyclables and removing them from the waste value chain when we do know that they can be of value. And in cases that they are that they could contaminate our land, ensuring that that does not happen by proofing the system to ensure that contaminated and hazardous waste is managed in a technologically efficient manner and in a governance system that allows it to be managed as such. So I think this is really part of our Building Back Better strategy and integrating this waste management system that ensures there's no diversion that goes to harm our environment, whether land or sea.
Thank you, Cecilia. I don't see any other questions at this time, except a comment that says, thank you for the informative webinar. So if anyone has any further questions after this, you're welcome to contact Cecilia directly. Her email address is available on the last slide that's visible. You're also welcome to contact SST, and we'll pass along any of those queries. For now, I just want to say a special thank you to everyone for joining us today, and a thank you as well to all the stakeholders who are involved in this project. And particularly thank you, Cecilia, for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat to us today about this program and the Flash Appeal and all the goals that that the project is aiming to meet. Thanks so much, everyone. On behalf of SST and the African Waste Academy, I think we can close it here for today. And thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, Cecilia.
Thank you. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day and bye-bye. Thanks.